My name is Ebony, and I'm from We Are Ideas. And we're going to talk about why you are experiencing the frustrating, anxiety-producing, fear-based experiences when it comes to talking to funders about your program and events, and not just get multi-year funding for those programs and events, but move you, your community, and your community closer to its mission and catapult even beyond it. Okay, let's bring people together. Okay, so let's set some ground rules here. First and foremost, as always, if you have questions, comments, leave them below and I'll answer most, if not all of them. You may have some thoughts about the way we provide some of this information. And so if there are things that you would like to see improved when it comes to how I'm delivering over 20 years of experience, almost 20 years of experience with supporting nonprofit and social impact companies, feel free to leave comments. I'm always open to getting better at our craft, in particular when it comes to supporting work that makes the world a better place. Okay, so that's on you. You'll let me know. On me, I may be diverting my eyes over here because I have notes that I want to make sure, based on the research that I've done and really bringing all this together for you all, I want to make sure that I'm hitting all my little points. So if you see me do that, that's why. And then today we're going to do a little bit of writing because I want it to feel a bit more dynamic instead of just talking at you. And we're going to try to create a workshop-y like experience, if you will. Also, do you like my little mic here? It's pretty. Okay. So first, let's talk about why you're here today. As a development director or executive director, someone who founded a social impact for-profit business that wants to make a significant impact in a particular industry. So maybe that's healthcare, maybe that's social justice around women's rights or racial liberation, Black liberation, or the migrant experience, any number of things that we can sort of discuss. And feel free to, again, to comment in the comment section below. This will support you in identifying the best funders, how to talk to them, and what you should be saying in those initial emails and then eventual meetings that will support long-term, multi-year, trust-based funding for your mission. Okay, so the goal of this today is to get funders to not just find your work interesting, and you know they find it interesting because they say, oh, let me think about it. And they maybe get back to you in a week or two, and then you have to send all these subsequent emails that feel sort of demoralizing, and it's just like not fun at all. And I want you to go from feeling really confident on these calls and being really clear about what the results are of the program and events. So first and foremost, I want to start off by talking about something that I want you to always think about when you are before you even approach a funder. And so the first thing is funding the, drum roll please, impact. Funding the impact. So let's talk about this for a second. I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is there may not be very many people that have the level of passion, sense of purpose, vocation that you do about the work that you set out to do when you either started working for said nonprofit or social impact company or started it yourself. And that's good news because not everybody will be able to have the kind of passion that you do about your industry, your cause, your community. And that will help to differentiate you between your organization and other organizations that may have a similar mission. However, we'll see later on in this video that when you conflate your reason, your lived experience with the mission, it muddies what funders believe they are paying for. Are they paying for your trauma and your experience? Or are they playing for a program, an event that will transform a particular cause and or system change work? So that's good news because it means that you can use what you know in order to change the future of your life, your community's life, and the causes that will impact them greatly. And so that can sometimes be mind-numbing because what you're doing is urgent. There are people that are literally dying as a result of some systemic oppression or issue that's taken place, some experience like climate change, for example, and you started this particular organization or company in order to support change. And so you are expecting people, when you sort of lay out the facts, the statistics, that you've gone to college for, you have 2 masters, you have a doctorate, you're clear-headed about the work in front of you, and somehow you have to convince some guy in a tie or some woman that doesn't know a thing about what your people are experiencing that the cause that you're putting forward is important and should be funded. And I'm here to tell you, part of that is because you are not relating to their experience. And we're going to get to their experience in a minute. But the first is their experience needs to look at what the impact of the funding they could give you will be on your community or cause. And so when you aren't very clear-headed about that, it also causes them to be blurry as well. And what clear-headed in this to us means when we're talking to our clients about this kind of work, it means that you are outlining what is the impact of the program, short-term and long-term, on the community or cause that they are, that they have been focused on, that is a part of their mission. And how you know what that is you have done your research, not just a cursory look at the website, but it's looking at what are they talking about in their press releases that are on their website? What are they talking about on social media? What is the buzz about them in other circles, either maybe other industries that intersect or with other organizations that have worked with them? What is being said about them on everything from TikTok, if it's available to you, or LinkedIn? Dig deep about what is going on with this foundation or this local nonprofit that's also supporting other organizations with dollars. You need to have a very clear head about what's important to them. And as a result, you're speaking to that when you're communicating with them, and it delivers the impact. The bad news is there are very few people that can do the work that you're doing. The worst news is many people that have had the lived experience attempted to start a company or organization to make the impact that you're making stop before the miracle happens. I know we've heard it a million times, but it is true. And so your work is to dig into the work so deeply that you take your lived experience, your expertise, your skill, and move beyond the difficult part of fundraising and building relationship with funders so that you can use other people's resources in order to move your program and events forward in a way that is transformational for your community. You can do this. Not always the best news, sometimes the worst news, but we'll do it together. So, for example, we had a client for many years and still have it. And I've worked and secured multi-year partnerships with municipalities over my career. In this particular city, I had built a relationship with, and I've built relationships with different cities, as I've mentioned. This particular one was sort of opening up what would have been a downtown kind of area. And there was going to be an art district that was connected to it. And there was a festival that I got brought in on in order to support some of the work that was being done. And I knew going in that there was a question mark about whether some of the dollars in order to build this downtown was actually going to be impactful to its residents, and whether that was a fiscally responsible way for the municipality to spend its tax dollars. And so we can get into a larger argument about that from a political standpoint, but being a good steward of funds is to me, and I think for most people, is an important endeavor. However, it's also important to really think about what is the big picture for any organization, in this case, government entity. And so we needed to be able to show what was going to be the impact of this festival long-term with the residents. And I can talk broader about what this particular event looked like, because there were a lot of bumps there. But what I did going in on the front end is really look at what were the demographics of this particular community, what had already been in place for this particular area, how was this particular series of events or events going to support the city. I had secured a local Lexus dealership as a sponsor of this particular event, and brought that into the city so that they knew that we were also had teeth in the game. And so I share that because I did my research on what was important to them. Fiscal responsibility. Were you also investing time, energy, and money into this particular festival? How were the residents going to be impacted by it long term, if at all? And if they were, what specifically, how that specifically was going to impact them short term and long term? Were you planning on having this event? Were we planning on having this event for 1 year? Are we planning on multi-year activities? And what was that going to look like, both for older residents, young families, as well as children? And so I went in with this information because I knew what the demographic of this particular municipality was. And so your job is not only to understand what are some of the unspoken ways that people that are carrying the bag, what they are thinking, how they are feeling. And you know that because they're articulating it. They're talking about it online. People you may know that know them or have had conversations about this. People aren't usually that secretive about their feelings. They're revealing it in some way, in some capacity. You need to dig into that, understand the psychology behind it, and bring that kind of information so you can answer questions in real, authentic ways. And so that's what we did. We supported the young, the middle-aged, and the 55 plus community in knowing that this kind of programming was going to support some of their larger goals when it comes to real estate development and other things that we knew were important to them. And so I came in understanding the psychological component of how they were thinking about fundraising. And you can't always know what someone's thinking about psychologically, but you have a sense about what is important to them. And that's what you're bringing to the table. Not in a way that is overdoing it. You want to be really grounded in what you know will be impactful when it comes to your company or organization. And so when I talk about impact, in this case, I'm talking about understanding what this program, that's not as important as what the result of the program is, both that day, if it's a one-day event, but also what the long-term results are because you are doing the work that you're doing. And so I want to be really clear about that piece of it. First off, is you have to understand that they are funding the impact. They are not funding your event or program. And so that should be 10% of your conversation is what's going on. The bigger conversation is here's what's going to happen because we know your people and you're talking about what those people are. Or you know the cause and you're talking about the cause because you understand it. You're not blowing smoke. You're very clear about who they are, what their needs are, and why your program is going to impact the people or cause long term. So you're funding the impact. And then you want to also be clear about the second idea here, which is their deliverables. Okay. Here's the rub. Oftentimes, clients will come to me, both as I've been a funder and asking for funding, and somehow they think bare bones deliverables is going to say the thing. A logo, a post on social media, inclusion in a media advisory. I mean, it's barely bare bones, okay, folks? when you're thinking about funding a event or program as a funder, you're thinking about what are the big strategic ways that I can make an impact on a particular community. And so what the deliverables looks like is how am I checking off some of the internal boxes that I need to check off? And here are some of them that I want you to be really clear about when you're approaching a funder. Number one, what community am I impacting the least and the most? Okay, so what community am I impacting the least and the most? So as a funder, you're asking yourself that question. Who in community are we already having the biggest impact on? So let's say, for example, using this particular municipality as an example, and there are many that I can use, and I want you to fill in the blanks as well. In this case, the ones we have the most impact on are the people that have already lived there and are the biggest fans of the people that are a part of, in this case, the commission. That was obviously the commission that was a part of the city. And so they're the residents of a particular city. They're talking about the city. What are they talking about? What is important to them? What's not important to them? Is there a way for you to tie in your programming and events to support this particular demographic? So that's one. In this case, the one that we have the least impact on, but want to have the most impact on, are residents that haven't yet moved into that city. And so you have to think about who is your funder trying to get in front of? Who are they trying to have the biggest impact on that they haven't quite reached yet? So that could be a particular group, but that also can be a particular strategy. So let me give you an example. In this case, the strategy may not be residents, but it may be real estate. So it could be real estate developers, it could be transportation surrounding real estate. There could be a lot of different variables that aid in trying to get funders to understand that you understand what their deliverables are. And so your homework is to be clear about what community am I impacting the least and I impacting the most. You're asking this question as if you are the person with the purse strings. And you need to be super clear-headed about that so that you go in understanding what is their pain point, what is their niche, not them as the funder, but the deliverables that they have to follow through on to do their job well. Because all of us in our position are trying to do our job well. And so you have to think about it from their perspective. And often what happens, I have a person I follow on social media that says people tend to come in a very sort of needy way that they're not actually saying out loud. But people can feel that a mile away. You have to come in confident that you know what the impact is going to be and what the deliverables are for the funder. And understand what their responsibilities are, understand what their deliverables need to be as a person that's inside of their own little political system inside their organization or company or family dynamic, so that they know they can write you a check for $15,000, $25,000, $75,000. What I have been very good at for over 15 years is securing multi-year funding or being the funder for events and programs that are anything south of $100,000. And so that supports usually smaller programs and events, but I'm doing it and teaching you how to do it for multiple years. Okay, so these are the deliverables for funders that you have to be clear about what they are for them, so they can check off their boxes. They can get that attaboy at the end of the year or the end of the quarter. You have to know what that is for them so that you can be answering that question when you go into a meeting. The first question you should be asking yourself, what community am I impacting the least and the most? That could also be what cause am I impacting the least and impacting the most? Because that's what they're asking themselves. And you know that again by visiting their website, press release, things they're saying on social media, what is other industry experts saying about this particular organization or person. You know that because you're paying attention, and you know what's being discussed, again, online. Okay, number 2. And their deliverables are, good one to really consider is, who are they talking to regularly? Okay, so funders are always having conversations with other funders, other benefactors. They're having conversations with people within their sector that's at their level. And you want to start to get an idea about who they're trying to connect with. What are they liking on LinkedIn? What have they shared on Facebook? Who are they connected to that maybe you may be connected to? Now, some of that information may not be readily available, but one of the best ways to know who that person is and what they're interested in is by doing a little Google research on the industry or sector. And so I'll put some information below so that you can know what websites to search for. One of which is usually some sort of university or college will give indications of what the direction of what a particular sector is going in. And so it's oftentimes I do research by talking to a local university or college about a particular topic so that I am clear on what is the industry standard to date and what is the future of this particular industry or sector. And so what that does is it helps me to know, what should I be reading? Books, articles, who is sort of the key person of influence when it comes to a particular idea or concept or industry or sector, and get in front of that so that when you go into a meeting, you know what they're talking about regularly and who they are talking to regularly. And you know that because you're doing a little bit of academic research on what is going on, what is the word on the street when it comes to not just the individual person, although if obviously you can get that, that's great, but if you can't, what is the word on the street about this particular sector? And that helps you to help to grow your knowledge base. Don't go in as a thought leader as if you've been doing it for 10 or 15 years. But if you're in this industry and you're talking to a partner, then you do have some expertise in this matter, but you want to make sure that you're really talking from a place of fact-based research is important to our work when it comes to how to identify transformational change within your particular sector, or what people are sort of thinking is going to happen next. You get this through having these kind of conversations with people that are in this work day in and day out, just like yourself. Being a part of that crowd will help to differentiate you from other people who are also asking for funding. Okay, and then lastly, when it comes to deliverables, I want you to think about how they decide ROI. Okay. This is a tough topic for a lot of funders because return on investment sort of says that, so the question is how they decide ROI. In this case, they is the funders. So how I, as the funder, if I'm the funder, decide return on investment. And you want to think through what that looks like for nonprofit organizations and social impact companies. They can be very different for nonprofits and for-profit entities. I recommend doing a lot of work on that. If you have any specific questions about what that looks like, please feel free to comment below, and I'm happy to answer questions. As someone who's been funding organizations for over 15 years and has been also getting funding from organizations and government entities and small donors as well as large donors, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, you need to be very clear about what the ROI is. Even if people aren't necessarily articulating return on investment, in particular in the nonprofit space, that can be a very ugly word because sometimes the return on investment is not always quantitative. You can't always drill it down to a number, but you should be able to articulate what the impact is long term, and should be able to articulate what the return on the investment in time, not just money and energy. And so I think what's really great about this is that it helps you to go into a meeting and have a clear head when it comes to what is the impact going to be when it comes to the program and events that you're doing, even if it doesn't feel comfortable to always have a quantitative number for a funder. It helps you to be clear about it, and it helps the funder know that you're serious and that you understand what the needs are, what the deliverables should be. Okay, so I share part of this also because this brings up a really good point and question about trust-based funding. So I think a lot of times when you're a nonprofit organization and you're passionate about your work, what we tend to do is get pretty, pissed really, when you're trying to explain the larger impact of something that is, in some cases, quite literally killing people. Whether it's climate change, whether it's trans lives being stomped on, whether it's Black erasure. There are so many nonprofits doing incredible work in community, and trying to convince funders is the first problem that I want you to sort of move beyond. And so one of the things I wanted to really address is differentiating between reason and your mission. So oftentimes part of what's frustrating is that you have had a lived experience with the nonprofit that you started. Maybe you have experienced homelessness and you've been unhoused yourself. Through different means, that experience shifted, and now you want to give back, you want to make an impact, you want to do system change work that supports government entities unraveling current systems that make it difficult for people to forget survive, even live in any capacity. And so one of the ways that that shows up is you're bringing your own experiences to the table, which is beautiful because lived experience is one way to be able to support telling the kind of impact story that lets people know that your mission is transformative. But you also have to check yourself and your reason and how you show up. Because while people really want to help, people automatically get turned off when how you show up feels desperate, entitled, bitter. And this is a hard pill to swallow. That, to be frank, is not always easy for me to be able to share with clients, because the fact about it is that you have been impacted. You know what systems do to people. They quite literally kill. And that is a difficult story to tell when on the other side of the table with the person holding the bag, it's not that they don't care, sometimes they don't, but oftentimes they do, and they still have deliverables that they have to check off, and they have to feel the impact so that they can continue to do the job. And so what you have to do is you have to figure out and identify, what is my reason? Understand the reason. My reason is because I had this lived experience. My reason is because I know solutions that will change the results of this particular community or cause. You understand that reason is important, but be clear-headed about that reason so that the mission has an opportunity to shine. So reason is your impact, your path, your history, sometimes your trauma. Understand that, write it down, journal about it. I suggest oftentimes to clients, be really clear when it comes to why you got into the work. And sometimes that means being deep into therapy so the work can be clearer, but you still have your story that hasn't changed. But the pain that encapsulates the story isn't going before you when you are headed into a meeting. And then there's the mission. The mission is the big thing that when it's accomplished, the organization has done its job. And sometimes that outlives us all, but sometimes we can move closer and closer to that. But if we let the reason erode the mission, it makes it difficult for people to understand what they're funding. Are they funding your pain? Are they funding your experiences? Or are they funding a solution or an impact that will actually change the way the outlook looks? And so part of how you build trust long term is making that distinction, telling your story, but also identifying opportunities for funders to really understand. Here's where I come from, here's what I know, here's my lived experience or what I've seen other people's lived experiences to be. And our mission is to decrease the murder rate for transgender Black women by 5% nationally over the course of the next 5 years. And here's how we're going to do it. We have this program that does this, this, and this. We're working with this social justice organization or these serious social justice organizations to do that. We're working with social workers in order to support a better relationship with people in communities doing sex work, or those women who, or men or non-binary folks that are buying homes for themselves or their family, are going back to college or getting a trade. There's so many things that are going on within your organization, and you have to be able to tell what the programs are, but most importantly, what is the impact? And as a result of the impact, here are the deliverables that funder X gets to check off because they did the work with you. And so part of building trust-based relationships is knowing exactly what your reason is, which is sometimes deeply personal. And I don't want to gloss over that. I'm acknowledging the reality of that. But you have to encapsulate that so that you can put it aside, use it when necessary, if you need to, if you want to, but be really focused on the mission, its programs, and what the impact of the programs will be. Okay, so next up. We talked about trust-based giving, and I want to share this specifically. Trust-based giving is a funding partnership between two entities that support a common goal. One is holding the bag, and the other knows what to do with the bag. Building trust is understanding their responsibilities and their deliverables. So I wrote that down, and I wanted to be clear about me sharing that with you because it's really important that when I go in to either ask for funding on behalf of clients, or they're asking our organization for funding specifically for a program or event, I want to make sure that it's clear what is my responsibility as the person who is a steward of a particular budget, or that I'm asking for funding and I recognize that that person is also being a steward. In some ways, a lot of funders are beacons. They're holding the kind of resources that can support moving an idea or concept forward. And so you have to be really sensitive to that, even if you know that capitalism is ruin, has and continues to kill people and harm people in ways that we still are unpacking as a society and continue to do so. I understand that. And under the umbrella of capitalism, you have to be clear-headed about what resources can do in order to support a greater mission. And for some people, that work may not resonate. And I get that. I'm not even arguing with you on why that is very true. But we still need to be able to work within the confines of this, of how philanthropy works, how social impact companies work. And in order to support moving these ideas forward, oftentimes, you have to have a good relationship with money and funders in order to talk about the mission versus the reason, so that people, when you're going into these business, that people understand, you know what the bigger mission is. And you have to step into the shoes of the funder in order to really understand that, because they're the ones that are having to do the work so that they can check off these deliverables and they can continue to support organizations like yours. Okay. I want to talk about creating a solution for them that supports your community. I pointed to this before, but one of the things that's really important when we're doing this work with clients, and so some of that, I want to pause there for a minute and say that one of our programs is the 15-5 program. And what we do is we bring nonprofit organizations on as a part of a member base, and we help them with events and programming, bringing more people to your events so that they care about your mission long term, making sure that it's well funded, and supporting the community and not just finding what you do is interesting, but landing the plane in a way so that they know that they are part of something bigger than themselves, causing them to volunteer, donate, work for the organization, bring other people on. Our expertise is scaling programs and events so that you don't have to do some of the minutia that goes into event planning and program scaling that we love to do, that we're experts in doing. And so if you're interested to learn more about the 15-5 program and helping you to plan and execute really good, beautiful, experienced events, please visit weareideas.global and share your information, and we'll reach out to you to see if it's a good fit. Okay, so what I was going to share is when you create solutions for them that supports their community, by them I mean the funders. So you want to really think about their deliverables in a way that you only know by getting to know them. And so one of the things that people do that is maddening to me as someone who gets asked about funding on a regular basis is you send these grandiose decks that are sometimes beautifully designed, sometimes not at all, and that's okay. I actually prefer the non-designed decks because at least you just got to it. These beautifully designed decks, you've had this one particular event or program for less than a year, or this is your first event. And at the last page of this 15-page deck with these beautiful glossy pictures, you're asking on the low end for $15,000 and on the high end $150,000. We don't know what your demographic is. We don't have any proof that you're going to deliver on what you're saying. You have not shown any sort of strategic partnerships. There's no world where you're getting the media that you shared, and I know because I've been doing it for a long time. You're not building the kind of relationships that tell me that you know what you're talking about. And how I know that, because most people that get funding from organizations that I've worked with or worked for, or when I give funding myself because of the work that I've done over the last 15 plus years of doing this work, is most people, unless you can, without a shadow of a doubt, prove, and that's usually because it's connected to a big name, start small. Start small. And I know that it's very difficult for people to say. I've shared this in other videos. People have events. They're 3-day long events. It was the first time out. You have big ideas. You think you can do it. You're devastatingly disappointed because you've spent your hard-earned money and funders' money for an event that, for myriad of reasons, didn't work out. You didn't have the experts doing the work on the back end to ensure that you had the right permits, the right insurances, the right people in place in order to support a myriad of different responsibilities that cause events to go off without a hitch. And that is very frustrating to me as someone who does this for a living, because what that says is that you did not think about the impact or the deliverables. Because if you did, you would start small. And you'd ask Alexis, when we confirmed that sponsorship, or a number of municipalities that I've worked with over the years, you start small. 500, 1,500, 3,000. Yes, the event is not going to be Art Basel or Ultra, but it's going to start off small. It's going to be successful because you work with a small budget. You use the resources you had. You showed these sponsors, hey, we're doing this work. We can really build on this. And 2 years, 3 years, maybe even 4 years down the road, then you can start to build on a sponsorship deck that's asking for more dollars. Now, this is one-off events sometimes, but even for programs that happen month after month, week after week, if you start small, then organizations, funders, small donors, even large donors, they can see, oh, this person has thought through what it means to build a creative idea. And that takes an inner wisdom that I think some people don't always tap into. You have to be really clear about what your end goal is. And sometimes, not all the time, but I would dare say in the 15 plus years that I've been doing this work, Starting small helps you to work out the kinks, and it shows funders that you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. And you know, because that first year, sometimes that first 2, 3, 4 years, as I mentioned, is a testing period. You have to work out the kinks. You have to jump and see if you can swim. Y'all being Michael Phelps and y'all haven't swam a day in your life. Bless y'all. Start small. A simple deck, 1, maybe 2 pages. Think outside the box when it comes to deliverables. Having a logo on a flyer, a graphic, a palm card, that's a given. Think about who your strategic partners are. Make sure that's included in the deck. Funders love to see that you're collaborating with others. You're not working in silos. There's so many organizations doing a lot of work. We are well past crabs in a barrel. 1997 wants its ideas back. You need to work in collaboration with people. That's how we get things going. That's how we move the needle. You understand what I'm saying? Let's work together. And so I want you to really think about creating the kind of decks that are simple, clean. A sponsorship letter, a LOI, a letter of intent, will tell them, even if you don't want to do the deck, a LOI does that really clearly. We're asking for this. This is what we're expecting to take place. These are our strategic partners. This is the municipality or the other nonprofit organization or the other entity or the influencer that we're working with in order to support this goal. We're starting small because we know we're new at this in this particular community. Here's how you can support. Most organizations and companies can come up with dollars below $10,000, sometimes $5,000. Most companies can do that. If you come honest, if you come correct, authentic about what you're doing and the impact you're going to have. Okay, so I gave you a lot of information. I suggest watching a couple times, not just because of the algorithms. If you don't want to watch it, don't worry about it. But if you do watch it a couple of times, it'll give you more questions to comment below. You can also shoot us an email at weareideas.global and share your comments and questions, and we will get back to most, if not all of them. I love the work that we do. Planning events, scaling programs, supporting the kind of work that helps you to take the guesswork out of event planning that seems arduous, but just inevitably a part of nonprofit and advocacy and mobilization and social impact work. It's a part of the work that we do, and we love it. And you don't always love it. You became event planners and you didn't sign up to be an event planner. It's wild. We did. And we do so for social justice companies and nonprofit organizations. So leave a comment, ask questions. As I mentioned, we'll get to most, if not all of them. And as always, let's bring people together.